Hello and welcome to this talk about how mobile application can be applied and used in clinical practice in relation to people with pain. First of all, I would like to show you this figure where we have pain on the one scale and we have time on the other scale. And the solid lines are the intervention groups, the groups which worked with mobile applications related to a painful condition. And the dotted line are the control groups. Across the included studies, you can see that most of the studies resulted in improvement in the intervention group. Also, in some of the studies, there were an improvement in the control group as well, but the improvement was largest in the intervention groups. This study was conducted based on already popular scientific literature, so it's a literature study, and these applications were tested across a number of populations. I've just marked three, where this one up here, the study by Blurt from 2018, is on recurrent menstrual pain, and another study down here by Sun from 2017 is on chronic cancer, and we have a study by Irvine from 2015 on chronic low back pain. So across a number of different pain populations where mobile applications were used to try to lower the pain experience, it seems like it has a beneficial effect. Another figure displays the change in pain, the average pain experienced before and after the application of a mobile software application to manage and try to reduce the pain experienced. And the pattern is the same here. We only have dotted lines because you have an intervention group which received the application and the intervention which application contains, and they use the application over a certain amount of time, and they rate and monitor the pain experience. And you can see all the lines move downward, which actually means that the mean pain experience is decreasing. So again, even though we don't compare two controls in this study, when we look at before and after the use of mobile application related to an experienced pain condition in relation to clinical practice, it seems like it has a beneficial effect. Okay, now I would like to talk to you about what competencies are in play when we as healthcare professionals want to work with mobile applications in relation to our clinical practice. I also want to address how we can support our patients by using mobile application. First of all, let's look at what competencies do we need. We need to be proficient in using the application technology. It is important when you introduce mobile applications that you balance the guidance that you provide with the autonomy that you still have to support in your patient. You need to align the aim and benefit of the application with the goals of your patient. It is important that we incorporate goals, because if not, then challenges can occur related to, for example, accessibility, the experienced user-friendliness of the application. Also, many applications work with a notification design, which also can increase the risk that patients opt out of using the application, which is not beneficial to your clinical practice. Applications should not be an add-on to your practice, but an integrated part. And for the application to be an integrated part, it may also require you to focus on the use of multidisciplinary approach, if necessary, and you have to be able to handle troubleshooting in relation to the application technology. Mobile applications can support patients. Self-management is a widely used part in relation to different pain conditions. When you use mobile applications in relation to self-management of pain, it is associated with improved empowerment, stress relief, and even a reduction in opioid use have been found. Application technology can also support the communication with the patient. If you use mobile applications in relation to communication, it can be seen as associated with increased motivation and support during, for example, rehabilitation or post-surgical follow-up. Application technology can also provide an alternative to a standard therapy that is already put together. If it is used to support the standard therapy or incorporated into standard therapy, it is associated with an experienced increase in the structure of the rehabilitation and also the adherence to, for example, training schedules which are put together for the patients. But we also need to focus on the potential barriers which may occur and try to minimize those. We need to focus on familiarizing patients with application technology to support the use. We need to consider each person as an individual. And we also have to make an effort to make sure that the content of the application fits the individual need. It could be based on, for example, the cultural background of the patient, the age, the patient preferences, other diseases or comorbidities which are present as well, and maybe also the severity of the pain experience or the illness can be something that will influence your choice of application. So, if possible, we need to tailor the technology and its use to each individual patient. Now, we have previously gone through a couple of examples and we're going to do the same again, this time with a little more detail. I have 3 examples I want to show you. The first one is a study on women with menstrual pain in the age group between 18 and 64 who experience cramping pain higher than 6 on a numerical rating scale. They received a mobile application called Acute, and the mobile application could provide them with a visualization of the menstrual cycle, and it contained instruction video of how to apply acupressure in relation to the pain that they experienced. The women received a reminder 5 days ahead of the beginning of the menstrual cycle and were encouraged to work with acupressure to try to minimize the cramping pain intensity. They received instructions through the mobile application on how to work with the acupressure. Here you see the instructions provided. So it was emphasized that this should be comfortable. They were instructed on how the different areas where they were working with acupressure could feel, should feel, and how they should not feel. They were provided with a methodic description, and the application of the acupressure were also explained. So this differs from a normal clinical setting where the healthcare professional would instruct the patient in the self-management of a specific treatment. Here, the patient would receive the treatment through the mobile application. The women in this study experienced some difficulties. There were some adverse events related to their work with the acupuncture or the usage of this treatment. Some experienced bruising, some experienced tingling fingers when they worked with the acupressure on their body, and an intensified local pain was also experienced. The women also found it challenging to apply the acupressure, and the adherence in the study wasn't great. So here there's an example that you try to deliver a treatment through a mobile application and you qualify the instruction provided, but still some of the experiences that the women have working with the treatment challenges the use of this approach. And the result from the study showed that the acupressure group benefited a little bit more from applying the mobile application in relation to their menstrual pain, but the difference between the groups aren't that big, and the question is whether or not this difference is clinically relevant. Now I have another example for you. In this example, they worked with a patient group between 45 and 70 years of age. The patient group was diagnosed with cancer and suffered from cancer pain. What was called an intelligent pain management system was put into play, and this management system is rather comprehensive. It monitors different aspects of the patient's life in relation to the illness, and it is also a communication platform between healthcare professionals and the patients. And now I would like to show you how comprehensive this mobile application was. So this is the first screen that the patient would visit, where they could choose to monitor quality of life, cancer pain. There was a medication reminder and real-time messaging with healthcare professionals. This is the front end for the quality of life part of the application, and as you can see, is rather comprehensive. There are questions related to mental status, questions related to sleeping. There's a section about knowledge about cancer, which they could visit. There was a part about pain, so a very comprehensive monitoring approach was taken using this mobile application. And the comprehensiveness was not solely related to quality of life, which is a rather broad perspective. Also in relation to the pain monitoring, the comprehensive approach continued. Here, questions related to the extent of the most severe pain is asked. They also have to document the least severe pain experienced, also have to indicate an average pain intensity, and so on. So a lot of information is provided by the patients, and this might challenge patients if the comprehensiveness of the self-reporting or the self-management introduced is too big and too resourceful for the patients to fully engage in. This is something that you need to consider. They also had a smaller pain section where there isn't that many parts which needs to be filled out. They simply just chose the number best representing their pain level. So this is also a numerical rating scale used here, but presented in a little bit of a different way than normally. Despite this comprehensive approach, the patients were actually both very satisfied with using the application and found it very helpful to work with in relation to the experienced cancer pain. I'm unsure whether or not the comprehensiveness is the only part that the patients benefited from. Maybe also the real-time messaging actually was something that the patient experienced as very useful. So a nice and easy accessible communication platform is probably also something that patients benefit from. The last example is of course also on mobile application use. In this case, it's people between the age of 18 and 65 years of age who experience back pain. An application called FitBack was introduced, and FitBack focus on cognitive and behavioral strategies aimed at helping patients self-tailor their approach to the management of the pain that they experience. So the self-management perspective here is a key characteristic. The content of the app was somewhat tailored to each user, so that should be a benefit in relation to the feedback that's a characteristic associated with the application. The application tracked pain. It also provided access to some different activities that the patients could engage in related to self-care. It prompted users to record the experiences that they have in relation to their pain. So kind of a narrative pain diary, which they could access, but probably also access together with the healthcare professional that they were working with, and talk about these notes of experiences that they have. If we look at the 3 studies, this is the study. So the study by Blöd et al. And Son et al. And Irvine et al. All 3 studies we've already touched upon earlier on. And if we look at the differences between the intervention and the control groups in the pain intensity experienced, then we have Blöd right here, Son, and Irvine. And again, the solid lines are the lines indicating the benefit that the intervention group or the group of people working with the mobile application experienced. And in this case, all the solid lines are below the dotted lines, meaning that they, in relation to the experienced pain, benefited more than the control group that they were compared with. So beneficial effects again. Again, you should be aware of if the difference between the control and the intervention group are large enough that they are clinically relevant. But nonetheless, it seems like there were benefits to achieve when applying different parts of mobile application or different mobile application across very different patient groups. If you want to revisit some of this literature, this is the references that I have used, and I hope you enjoyed this short section.